One of my favorite things to make for a holiday breakfast is a really good cinnamon roll. But if you need a gluten-free version, it can be a little trickier to get the same results. Luckily, I figured out the secret for making the best gluten-free cinnamon rolls, and today I'm going to show you how to make them. To get started, you'll need to proof the active dry yeast. I like to make sure I'm starting off with a warm bowl, since yeast loves to grow in a warm environment. Fill the bowl you plan on using to proof the yeast with very hot tap water. Then set that aside for a moment so the bowl can warm up. Next, pour out that water and add in 1 cup or 8 ounces of very warm water. This should be between 105 and 115 degrees Fahrenheit. If it's any hotter than that, you might kill the yeast. Add in 1 teaspoon of sugar and then sprinkle in a packet of active dry yeast. This is a 1/4 ounce package or 7 grams by weight. In about 5 minutes, you should see a foam start to develop on top of the water, letting you know that the yeast is good. If you don't see any bubbles or foam, you might want to start again with a different yeast packet to make sure the cinnamon rolls will rise. While you wait on that, you can mix together 3 tablespoons of whole psyllium husk with another 3/4 of a cup of very warm water. This simple combination is the magic solution for making gluten-free cinnamon rolls that actually have an amazing texture, just like the traditional recipes. You can find whole psyllium husk in the supplement section of your grocery store, and as you mix it together with the water, it will thicken up and form a gel. Set that aside, then in a large bowl, add 3½ cups of gluten-free flour. I'm using Bob's Red Mill 1-to-1 baking flour for this recipe, which includes xanthan gum to help with binding. I recommend using the same brand if you want to get the exact same results you see here, but other gluten-free flour blends might also work. If you want to be precise and weigh your flour in grams, be sure to choose the metric measurements over on my website. Next, add in a 1/2 cup of sugar, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and 3/4 of a teaspoon of fine sea salt. Whisk the dry ingredients together, then add in 1 large egg. It's best if this egg has come to room temperature ahead of time, but it's not a deal breaker if you use one straight from the fridge. You'll also need to add in a 1/2 cup or 1 stick of melted butter. If you need a dairy-free recipe, you can swap this for melted coconut oil instead, but I recommend using a refined or expeller pressed coconut oil so it won't add a coconut flavor to your cinnamon rolls. Once the yeast has developed a foam on top, you can add that to the mixing bowl, along with the psyllium gel. Stir that all together using a sturdy spatula. It will feel slightly more sticky than traditional dough, but that's because gluten-free flour requires a little more moisture, so don't be tempted to add more flour at this point. Place the bowl of dough in a warm place to rise for 1 hour. I'm using the proof setting on my air fryer, but you can also place it on a low heat heating pad and keep it covered to rise. When the hour has passed, the dough will not necessarily double in size, but it should expand. The top of the dough may feel dry to the touch, but the underside will still be a little moist. So knead that directly in the bowl for about 60 seconds. It's okay if the dough still sticks to your fingers slightly, so don't be tempted to add more flour. Place a large piece of parchment paper on your counter, then set the dough in the center. Cover the dough with another large piece of parchment paper, then use a rolling pin to roll it into a large rectangle, about 11 by 16 inches wide and 1/8 of an inch thick. Remove the top layer of parchment paper, and then it's time to add the filling. Pour 2 tablespoons of melted butter over the top and spread it around evenly. Then sprinkle on a 1/2 cup of tightly packed brown sugar, leaving about a 1/2 inch of dough at the top plain, so it will be easy to seal the roll later. Then sprinkle on roughly 2½ teaspoons of ground cinnamon. I usually just use the shaker to generously coat the top. Now use the parchment paper starting at the bottom of your rectangle to start rolling up the dough. Thanks to the psyllium husk addition, this dough is easy to work with and is very similar to regular cinnamon rolls. But I find that using parchment paper keeps everything rolling smoothly. Once you get to the top, use your fingers to pinch the dough together. Slice the log into 10 to 12 slices using a very sharp knife, or you can use unflavored dental floss. The dental floss tends to make prettier rolls, but I think using the knife makes the process a lot faster. To make extra delicious cinnamon rolls, fill a 9 by 13 inch pan with 2 more tablespoons of melted butter and spread it around to grease the pan. Sprinkle 2 tablespoons of sugar evenly over the bottom. Then arrange the sliced cinnamon rolls over that. The butter and sugar will caramelize as the cinnamon rolls bake, making the bottom side of these gluten-free cinnamon rolls just as delicious as the top. The cinnamon rolls will need to rise for 1 more hour at this point, so place them in a warm spot and be patient. They will grow in size, and once the hour has passed, they are ready to bake. When you have 20 to 30 minutes left on that second rise, start preheating your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Bake the cinnamon rolls for 25 minutes or until they grow in size and start to look dry on top. They won't turn golden brown the way traditional cinnamon rolls do, but they will taste just as delicious. Remove the pan from the oven and let them cool while you prepare the frosting. You can use any frosting you prefer for the topping, but I like to make a glaze starting with 2 tablespoons of melted butter. Next, add in 1.5 cups of powdered sugar, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and about 2 tablespoons of water to thin out the texture. Stir until the frosting is smooth, and add an extra teaspoon of water if you need a runnier consistency. Drizzle the frosting over the cinnamon rolls and spread it out evenly. Then they are ready to serve. The psyllium husk gives this recipe the exact same texture as the kind made with all-purpose flour, so these are delicious enough to serve to all of your holiday guests, even if they don't need a gluten-free recipe. If you would like to make these cinnamon rolls ahead of time and have them taste like you made them fresh that morning, the easiest way to do it is prepare the dough up to the point that you roll it into a log. Wrap the parchment paper around the dough, then cover that tightly with plastic wrap and store it in the fridge for up to 48 hours. When you're ready to make the cinnamon rolls, remove them from the fridge at least 2.5 hours before you plan on serving them. They will be a little messy to unwrap, but then you can slice them into rolls and place them into the prepared baking pan. The chilled dough will need double the amount of time to rise, so plan on letting them rest in a warm spot for about 2 hours. Then you can bake them at 350 degrees, just like you would if you were making the dough fresh that morning. If you need an egg-free or vegan recipe, you can replace the egg with an extra tablespoon of psyllium husk mixed with a 1/4 cup of water. This is similar to a flax egg, but more sturdy for gluten-free baking. I hope you'll enjoy these gluten-free cinnamon rolls soon, and be sure to check out my other videos here for more fast and easy real food recipes.